If I may have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the services here in our chapel for Mr. Lawrence Isaac. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you may have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, please turn it off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Michael Tillman.
A long time ago, to be more precise, more than 25 years ago, when I was a young man studying at the Rabbinical Academy, I had a teacher, a true genius. His name was Ben-Zion Wacholder. He was a professor of Talmud in our academy. Now, Dr. Wacholder was from Poland, from the Hasidic family. Then he went to the yeshiva in Baranovichi before the war. Then the World War II broke out. He fought the Germans in the guerrilla unit, ended up being captured in the concentration camp, lost his eyesight. He was blind, but the man could recite any page from the Talmud from his memory. He knew Talmud by heart, so which is just unimaginable, really, unfathomable. And we had a very close relationship because I was the only student in our class who was born in Alter Heim in the old country. Everybody else was American born. So he loved me more than other students, which means he tortured me more. But we were close. And as you can guess, he was rather old at the time, of advanced age. And at some point, Dr. Wacholder's health began to decline, and the physician told him that his days are numbered. So that's when we had this conversation, and I'll never forget. Like many young people, I perceived death rather dramatically. So I asked him, Dr. Wacholder, are you afraid to die? Are you afraid of death? And he told me something that astonished me at the time. He said, Michael, that's how he called me, Michael. He said, first of all, I already died many times. I died fighting the Germans. I died in the concentration camp. To die one more time is no big deal, he said. But more importantly, think about this. What is death? Death is nothing. So how can I be afraid of nothing? And in that expression, in that line, he truly expressed the nature of the essence of our spirituality. He's right. Death is nothing because life is everything. There is this cliche that Judaism is a religion of life. Cliche as it is, but it's very accurate. We're really all about life. And that clarifies the spiritual significance of the ritual of saying farewell to people whom we love. What brought us here today? Well, Larry's life. That's why we're here today. It is a day when we feel pain of loss. There's no question about that. Day of mourning, sadness, yes, it's inevitable. When you love somebody, it's painful to lose our loved ones, yes. But with the passage of time, the pain of loss will subside. What will remain is the beauty of Larry's life. When I use that word beauty, that was no exaggeration. Because when we talked and you shared with me, I think it's as good as it gets. I don't know if it can get any better than that. It's just a beautiful life. I'm not suggesting it was an easy life. There's no such thing as an easy life. But it was a beautiful life that was complete in all respects. Now, how do we live our lives? Well, in our lives we have everything, good things and bad things, pleasant things and painful things, profits and losses. That's the nature of human existence. There's people who only have a good time in this world, and that's pretty much it. They don't exist, really. And people whose life consists of incessant tragedies also, thankfully, do not exist. But our duty as human beings to make sure that every experience that we live through, that it counts, that it's meaningful. It's easier to make the fun experiences count, much harder to make the challenging ones meaningful. But all the same, it is our duty. And that's how we create our legacy. That's how we live our lives. And that's how people remember us when we are no longer in this world. And this is what King Solomon taught us 3,000 years ago when he composed his book, Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. Well, I have to give you a disclaimer. The tradition says it was King Solomon. The historians disagree. Oh, well. Chapter 3. לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ תחת השמיים. עת לרדת ועת למות, עת לדעת ועת לקור נטוע, עת לפרוץ ועת לבנות, עת לבכות ועת לשחוק, עת צפות ועת רקוד, עת להשליך אבנים ועת כנוס אבנים, עת לחבוק ועת לרחוק מהבה, עת לבקש ועת לאבד, עת לשמור ועת להשליך, עת לקרוא ועת לתפור, עת לחשות ועת לדבר. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to discard, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. It is a time to speak. It is a time to reflect on Larry's life, on the beauty and the meaning of his legacy. And I'll repeat myself, Larry's life, well, it is as good as it gets. One ancient rabbi said that in order for life to be meaningful, we need to have 4 qualities. 1, we need to have ayin tov, a good eye. 2, we need to have, or to be, shachen tov, we need to be a good neighbor. 3, we need to have haver tov, a good friend. And 4, we need to have lev tov, we need to have a good heart. Now, Larry possessed all 4 of those character traits. Ayin tov, a good eye. Well, first of all, he was a CPA. You got to have a good eye when you're a CPA. You got to be careful. You got to have attention to detail. And not only was he a CPA, he was an excellent CPA. As you all know, it is a very specific, very peculiar, if I even may use that expression, field of activity. If you want to become a CPA, you better love it. If you don't, you're not going to be any good. I mean, it's true for any profession, but it is especially true for things like that, things like CPA that require precision, attention, concentration, and he loved his work. He loved it. And Larry was a CPA until the last day of his life. He arrived in this world in 1930 in Chicago, and he was a proud resident of the south side of Chicago. Hyde Park High School is his alma mater. Now, this brings me to the paradox, by the way. He's from Hyde Park, but he still was the Cubs fan. I mean, I know there is a rather large White Sox underground on the north side, but the Cubs underground on the south side, that's much more scarce, I would say. Be it as it may, well, maybe because he went to DePaul, maybe that's why. He went to DePaul University, and as I said, eventually became the CPA. Shachen tov, a good neighbor. Well, a good neighbor is a good citizen. He was a noble citizen of our country, a true patriot of the United States. He served our nation during the Korean War and made his contribution to that war effort. 1953, when he was discharged, actually, that's when the war ended. Again, he was an accountant. He wasn't a CPA, so he got a very sweet job, really. He was stateside. Lisa incorrectly thought he was in Indianapolis. Mike corrected, he was on the West Coast. Well, I'd rather be on the West Coast than Indianapolis, to be very honest. But be it as it may, he was in the United States and made his contribution to the war effort. And then following that, he embarked upon a very successful career. Arthur Anderson for a little while, which no longer exists. Then he worked for many years for Fullerton Metals Company, a very long time, and then he was very proud of GL Holdings, which was his own geschäft, his own gig. And again, I mentioned that because both Lisa and Mike told me yesterday that was really big for Larry. I mean, he was very proud of that. And as I mentioned, he was active. He worked until the very last day of his life. He was a CPA. So again, a good eye, a good neighbor, a good citizen. Well, of course, he was a good citizen of Chicago because he supported the Cubs. Oh, well. Yeah, I respect the White Sox, for the record. Don't take it. Yeah. Good friend. Well, this is one of the very important things that constitute part of Larry's legacy. He had the ability of building relationship with people and building lifelong friendships. That was a very important part of his life and of his character, of his personality. And that's what it means to be a good friend. When you're friend for life. When you're friend, you're loyal. And again, I mean, there will be people who will share with us their thoughts, later on, so I will not dwell on that point because these things will be said, I'm sure. But that's a very important character. And a good heart. Good heart, first and foremost, is love for the world, and he loved the world and enjoyed the world, and he enjoyed country music. He learned to enjoy opera, I suspect with somebody's assistance, right? Not on his own, right? Yeah, I knew you were going to say Vera. I knew you were going to point to Vera. Of course. But it was sincere. He loved opera, right? Traveled the world, in all those things are part of that love for the world, love for life. Big sports fan. Again, I think more things will be said, but I will simply say that, I keep on mentioning the Cubs. You have to understand something. The Cubs fans constitute one of the most underappreciated layers of the American culture. Because, just to give you an example, 20 years ago, I did a funeral for a man who was 92 years of age at the time of his passing. So 2002, he was born in 1910. He was a huge fan of the Chicago Cubs. In that period of time, the Cubs never won. Okay? This is how tragic our fate is, of the Cubs fans. I used to quote King Solomon, paraphrasing the book of Ecclesiastes. One generation passeth, another generation cometh, and the Cubs still lose. Come November 2nd, 2016, we lose no more. Larry lived to see it, and that's a blessing. And then, of course, the Bears, the Bulls, and all that, I will not expand on that, others will. Finally, the most important part. We can be as successful as we want in our professional career. We can have relations with that, but there's nothing more important in our lives than family. This is the biggest mission that every human being has. To establish a family, to have a strong, loving family, to have strong, loving relationship with your spouse, to raise good kids, to be proud of your grandchildren. That is something that is our primary mission in this world. And Larry has succeeded here too. Left off, a good heart, a good, loving, caring heart. He had a sister, Elaine, who passed away a long time ago. May memory be a blessing. She was in her 40s, right? So very young. Larry was married to Nina of blessed memory for almost 40 years. And I also would like to acknowledge a wonderful life companionship that he enjoyed with you, Vera, for the last 25 years. And again, there's a really touching story. It's almost like worth of making a film about it. I don't know. I mean, it's how Paul and Vera were friends, and Larry and Nina were friends, couple friends, and then Nina unfortunately departed from this world, and so did Paul, and Vera and Larry became closest friends and companions, and truly they became one family. Friends became family. It's beautiful and meaningful. That's life. That's what life is about. Children, it is my mission as a parent to raise good children. When my children grow up, their career is good, good things happen for them, I'm proud. But my mission is only complete when the moment arrives, I say to myself, my son, my daughter grew up to be a good human being. That's when I'm done. And Larry was rightfully proud of Lisa and Mike. Not only he loved his children, he raised good children. Lisa is married to Corey, who's also very dear to Larry's heart, and he had a wonderful granddaughter, Jessica. And of course, I would like to acknowledge Lori, Michael, David, and their families. We can go on and on and on with the list. We'll be here until 5 p.m. if we keep doing this. 7 nieces and nephews, too. So we have to stop somewhere. My friends, at this time, we shall continue to celebrate Larry's life and to rejoice in his legacy through the thoughts and reminiscences of his loved ones. So I was given the list. I hope I'm not going to mess it up. The list, that is, Lisa is first.
I hope everyone's comfortable that I removed my mask to speak. We just wanted to make sure people could hear us. And yes, I'm in my 50s, so I have to use these. So anyway, welcome everyone. And thank you for joining us to celebrate our dad's life today. And I'm not sure how long I'll go without losing, so forgive me. I'm going to look down a little more because I think I can keep myself straight that way. A little over a year ago, a lot of you know that several people shared their thoughts in letters to Dad as we celebrated his 90th birthday. Leveraging those letters, we thought it would be better to remind all of us, and I include myself, about how Dad lived versus focusing too much on his passing. And we think he would enjoy that as well. So to that end, I'm going to start by sharing thoughts from a close family friend and a few from Vera. And then I'm going to invite a few others to come up and just share their thoughts. So we thought that would be a much better use of our time here than focusing on his death. So Ron Steiner was, we moved to Morton Grove, a lot of you know this, in 1967, and a new family moved onto the block, the Steiners, a couple of years later, and directly from Hungary. And we became very, very close with that family. And Ron wrote a birthday letter to our dad last year, and he asked me if I would share a portion of that with you now. So, and it's called My American Dad. And this is now Ron speaking. My parents often remarked that when they bought the house on Emerson Street, that the very first family to greet us was yours. Little did we know how big an impact on our family yours would have. My own father did the best he could, but he was limited by circumstance and experience. He never bowled, but you, Larry, took me bowling. He wasn't interested in sports, but you took me to my first Cubs game. There you go. He wasn't interested in grilling, but you showed me how to grill. You were my American dad. I was raising my own children. I often look back on my own experiences. There were some in my household that were good examples and some that were cautionary tales. But when I look back and recall the unconditional love that you, Larry, had for your kids, yours was an example I sought to emulate. I remain forever grateful for the impact you and your family had on me and mine, both directly and indirectly. Thank you for being my American dad. Love, Ron. And I know I don't have to say this, but I'm going to anyway. Vera has been my dad's partner for 25 years or so. Sorry, guys. Which has given both, I think, the Isaac and Reuben family a lot of joy. For his 90th birthday, Vera shared what I thought were some wonderful thoughts that I don't think I knew. She said, my earliest memory of Larry was playing some kind of ball in the middle of the street in the neighborhood. It was either baseball or basketball, maybe hockey, but always a game that used a ball of one size or another. My friends and I think they were girlfriends, would watch all the boys for a while with the hope that one of those future athletes would notice us and maybe even flirt a little bit. Never happened. They only cared about their balls. Many years passed and Larry and I went our separate ways after grade school until Larry and Paul started to spend time staring at each other across a bridge table at least twice a week for many, many, many years. They both loved this so much. We again met up after Paul and Nina passed away. And then she said, Larry, you've brought so much joy and peace to my life, for which I'm so grateful. We've taken many trips and had a lot of laughs, and I love you very much, Vera. Thank you for that. Lori, would you and Jimmy, I don't know if you want to bring him with you, come up. Thanks.
So I'm bringing Jimmy up here for moral support. And in case I start to cry, I can just pass this over. Okay. I'll never forget the day some 25 years ago when Larry asked me if I was okay with him and my mother dating. I couldn't get over how thoughtful it was of him to be so considerate and sensitive. Of course, I was overjoyed that my mother and Larry, such dear friends for so long, sharing so much history together, were able to have a second chance at love. They traveled the world together, sharing many wonderful adventures. As Larry put it, it was like a fairy tale. He was utterly and completely devoted to and in love with my mother. He was always there for her in good times and bad. Larry was a man you could count on. When they first started dating, my children were 7, 11, and 15, and were involved in lots of extracurricular activities. Larry attended all their sports games, concerts, and temple events. He even suffered through an endless dance recital in the sweltering heat with no air conditioning. So that's love. Many years ago, the Rubin family started a Hanukkah tradition of a $10 anonymous grab bag game. The most popular item was a beer bong that everyone assumed was brought by one of my kids. There was lots of trading back and forth for it. Larry just sat back quietly and then watched our reactions with amusement when he finally admitted the beer bong was his gift. I think we all saw Larry in a different light that night. Larry was a devout Cubs fan. My mother was a diehard White Sox fan. Theirs was a mixed relationship, each passionately loyal to their team. In 2005, when the White Sox won the World Series, my mother and Larry were going on a cruise. Larry handed my mother a gift. It was a White Sox t-shirt. Such a generous gesture for a Cubs fan, but there's more. As an example of what kind of guy Larry was, he then showed my mother that he also had bought a White Sox t-shirt for himself and even wore it on the cruise. It takes a big man to do that. Even in Larry's quietness, he was a force and presence in the room and in our lives. Things just felt different when he was there. He filled us with a sense of calm. He was so good-natured. We loved him dearly. Larry and my father, Paul, such great friends and bridge partners, seemed to share many of the same qualities. I like to imagine that the whole gang of best friends are back together again and having a joyful reunion. How lucky we were to have him in our lives. Thank you.
Oh, I have it on the list, yes, David.
Okay, here's my letter for Larry's 90th birthday. Some of it will be a little repetitive. My memories of Larry, all of them fond memories, date back to when I was a young boy. My father, Paul, who I admired as an expert card player, would take the train downtown to team up with his buddy, also an expert card player, in weekly bridge tournaments. My father really looked forward to those evenings. Larry and Nina were always so hospitable when we visited them in Morton Grove. Once all their dogs shut up, we really were able to enjoy ourselves. Good memories of Chinese food and movies on Christmas Day, more memories of hanging out with Michael there, swimming in the pool, and playing poker in the basement. Just as hospitable were Larry and Nina in Valparaiso when I went to visit. I always enjoyed visiting Lyra and Mike and Gurney for our clobbiash sessions, even if there always seemed to be a foot of snow when I went there. Larry was one of only 7 clobbiash players in the world, so I claim. And then, of course, I cannot express how grateful I am to Larry for being my mother's companion, although he did not ask me if I was okay with it, which of course I was. I knew Vera was smitten when, on the day my son, Lyle, was born, she went to the White Sox game with Larry. I forgive you, Ma. My deepest condolences to the Isaac family and to my mother. Larry was a great guy, and I'm going to miss him a lot.
Mike and Lisa asked me to offer an opportunity to anyone who would like to share with us their thoughts and sentiment about Larry. So this is the moment. if you would like to say a few words, you're welcome to come up. No pressure, though, no pressure, but just want to make sure we don't deprive anyone. Okay, then Mike will share his thoughts about his father.
Well, thank you all for coming today. Really, we really appreciate it. Everyone here is really part of our family as well. Some of this will be repetitive as well, but I'm gonna just share what I wrote. My dad and I, as you all know, we're extremely close. He was not just a father to me, but we were best friends. He was there for everything that mattered in my whole life: graduations, my bar mitzvah, holidays, all sorts of sports activities. He was always there. We went to Las Vegas together many times, and we always had a blast. It was one of my favorite things each year I would always look forward to. In the last few years, we took a national park vacation throughout the western USA and a bus trip along the East Coast. And those were also great times with my dad. With our dad. While the pandemic was tragic and restrictive for everyone, it actually gave me some very special time with my dad, because we couldn't see as many people, and that was very special to me. We played cards a couple of times a week for the last 2 years, and just last weekend he crushed me in a card game similar to bridge called Claviage. Yes. Yeah. He broke a couple records in the last game we played against each other when he crushed me. We picked up lunch or dinner or watched movies or sports all the time. I didn't write this down specifically, but I'm a Cub, Bull, and Bear fan because of my dad, and I always will be. So I will always remember the pandemic as a time to look back on and treasure in terms of my relationship with my dad. My dad lived his life exactly the way he wanted to for 91 years. He lived a full life. I already miss him. He is the type of father anyone would be lucky to have. And Dad, I love you, and I will miss you forever.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. And finally, well, Lisa is back. Well, there's water here. There's tissue, everything you need.
I'm going to try and read through somewhat quickly so I can get through. So this was my letter to Dad last year, and I'm thrilled to read a portion of it to you. To my dad, growing up, you were the most positive person in my life. Couldn't even make it one sentence. Always encouraging me to try new things, take a chance, find the silver lining, pursue my passions, and see the glass as always half full. In many ways, you were a counterbalance which helped me thrive and survive. You were the arms I ran to when things weren't good, your big hand holding mine, telling me everything would be okay. The cup games, especially when you took me out of school, the best part, because they were only day games, no lights, are some of my fondest memories. You made me score the darn game every time, and then you'd let me give up just to eat peanuts and throw the shells on the floor. The late night TV, Carol Burnett, my favorite movie, Hello, Dolly, where we always got to sneak a snack without retribution. The amazing vacations across the US and Europe. Camp Parent Visiting Day was such a blast. I got to show off my skills, and you always participated with us. And those times when I needed a little saving, whether it was a speeding ticket, there were a few, or needing to get settled quickly in Washington, D.C., or even my life-saving surgery at Johns Hopkins. You never hesitated to step in and bring me comfort and a belief that it would all be okay. I bring all of that to my own family because of you. Almost there. To this day, I still learn from you how to age with grace, how to stay positive, how to stay active and sharp, how to enjoy every day. In many ways, you are still my inspiration.
Daddy, I love you always and forever. Be safe and have fun playing bridge with Paul. I know you are. Love you forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Friends, today is the day when we say to Larry, Lech B'Shalom, go forth in peace. His time has come, and the Almighty One has summoned him. And we know that the angels in heaven are greeting him with the words, Boi B'Shalom, enter here in peace. God will receive his soul with love and compassion. And here on earth, Larry will always continue to live in our hearts, our minds, and most importantly, our good deeds. So may Larry's memory be a blessing upon all of us. Let us honor Larry's memory with a moment of silence. Please rise, and the memorial prayer will follow. אל מלא רחמים שוכם בעמרומים, אמצא מנוחה נכונה על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזער הרכים מזהירים, את נשמת לורן שהלך לעולמו, בעל הרחמים יסתרהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, וצור בצור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר אמן. God, full of mercy, who dwells in the heights, provide a sure rest upon the divine presence's wings, within the range of the holy, pure, and glorious, who shine and resemble the skies, to the soul of our beloved Larry. The Master of mercy will protect him forever and will bind his soul in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. Let us all say, Amen.
Please be seated. On behalf of the President of the United States and a grateful nation, I present to you this flag in recognition, thanks, and praise for your father's service to our country. Thank you, Rabbi. This concludes the service here in our chapel. The interment will take place immediately at the family's plots at Zion Garden Cemetery, 6758 West Addison in Chicago. Because of ongoing public health concerns, the Shiva will be private. For those of you going with the family in procession, we'll be forming the procession in our parking lot. Please make sure you have an orange funeral safety sticker. That sticker should be placed in the front passenger side of your windshield. Would also ask that you please have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, our staff will be putting magnetic flags on tops of the vehicles in the car, and we will have a funeral home car at the back of the procession as well. For those of you here in person, I want to make sure you're aware the family has asked that memorial contributions be made to the American Diabetes Association. That information's on the inside portion of the funeral service folder you should have. If you did not receive one, they are available as you depart. For those watching online, this information is available on the website you are currently on. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise as the deceased and his family are escorted from the chapel. Thank you.